First of all, I am not going to sit here and just tell you, oh, the entire book series is bad. While I point out a lot of flaws that I can see, I love this book series to death. It is possibly one of my favorite series of all time. And while I don't exactly agree with a lot of the sequel series and a lot of the books that came out later, I feel like the last book that I honestly like is The Son of Neptune, but everything has its good and the bad. I just tend to see a bit more of the bad. Despite this, I am not going to sit here and tell you, oh, the entire series is bad, but I'm also not going to tell you, oh, the entire series is perfect and there's no issues. Issue number one that I want to address, despite there being like a gabillion different myths, in fact, I've got theoid.com, which is a pretty credible website about different titans up here. One of the things that I noticed, um, it is never actually said that Iapetos, or the Piercer, or as we know him, Bob, it was never actually said that he fought in the war on his own page. Images of spear, a tool born of craft. Yeah, he is the powers of mortality and craftsmanship appear in the characters of the Sons of Iapetos. Yeah, there isn't really a mention of him being in the war. It's said that he is cast down to Tartaros. Where does it say that? Yeah, Tartaros instead of Tartarus because the us is a bit of a later one. Tartaros is the more Greek version of it. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know everything about this whole entire Greek war or anything like that. I think that Percy's introduction of knowing some myths, like, oh yeah, then the Titans and the gods had a big fight and the gods won. That is a perfect way to sum it up. There's not a whole lot of details to it. Second thing that I want to bring up, Percy's supposed to be a Greek demigod, but he seems to encounter a lot of Roman things and seems to be pretty Roman in nature. In fact, the entirety of the Greeks do. One of the first things that I'm going to change is 1. Everything Greek is going to be the oldest Greek part I can find. There will be references to a lot of the Roman or more modern retellings of everything, but they are going to either be done in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, like how Percy describes it in the Greek Gods books and the Greek Heroes books, or it is going to be Percy just giving us a brief rundown. This thing will most likely kill you. Sharp Teeth would love to eat demigods for breakfast. You know, the classic sassy, sarcastic remark to pretty much everything. So we don't actually get a lot about the monsters, but due to either descriptors or just from the vagueness of them, we can tell if they're the old variant or the new variant. So, yes, everything Greek is going to say Greek. Change number 2. There is no way that I'm having all of the prophecies be rhyming. This is a thing done for modern retellings of the Greek stories and everything, because this is not a thing in actual Greek mythology. 1, they would have to rhyme in the original language and in English, which simply does not work. And 2, it's just weird that everything rhymes. While you could attribute this to Apollo taking over the gift of prophecy, I also want to remind you Apollo's poetry is basically a song. And songs back then weren't exactly this grand old rhyming scheme thing. Um, Point number 3. I'm not having every great historical figure be a child of the gods. They might know the gods exist and might be, like, chosen by the gods, but having every important figure is just a bad way to do world building and storytelling. Because, one, this brings up the issue of a certain guy who likes um, rectangular windmills um, is the son of Hades, and I honestly really hate this idea. By making one of the sons of Hades be the biggest bad of them all, you have essentially doomed Hades to having this preconceived notion of him. And while yes, one child doesn't spoil the bunch, it does. It really does. And two, yeah, no, Hades himself would have killed the bastard. So what I'm wanting to do is bring in a oh, okay, so they can be the children of either minor gods or as the Romans call them, legacies, or they might just be champions of the gods. Odysseus wasn't a demigod. He was a champion of Athena. This is one of the things that I will actually change about this. The Greek camp is for Greek demigods only, because monsters tend to leave even clear-sighted mortals alone. This does not mean all of them, but it does mean most of them. And the last little point that I'm wanting to do, I am going to make Percy a lot less trustful of camp. Here's the thing, while we can consider Camp Half-Blood to be one of the homes for a lot of great demigods, I wouldn't call it one of Percy's homes. Because reminder, despite directly mistrusting him because the sons of Neptune always cause disasters, which, let's be honest, Percy is a bit of a disaster causer, they actually had a very clear reason to distrust Neptune, and they got better after a little bit. In fact, Percy was only in camp for about 2 days before everything went to shit, and not by his own fault. And, as much as I know a lot of people would want to discredit this, Camp Half-Blood hated Percy. You want to know the times where Camp was actually nice to him? You want to know the exact times where a lot of the different campers seem to get along with Percy? Error 404, seen not found. In fact, we hardly learn the names of anyone. It is made pretty clear that A, Percy is a bit of a loner type, but also B, nobody reached out to Percy first. This is one of the big problems that I feel like a lot of people tend to gloss over. Percy is not the de facto leader of camp. I know a lot of people tend to make him that in the fandom or anything like that, but I also want to point out Percy is a loner due to circumstances outside of his control. So if I sort of amp up the Greeks' mistreatment of him, but their sudden reverence and almost goddess-like worship of Talia, this creates an even bigger divide. While yes, this would make the Sea of Monsters book a bit longer, and I'm not there yet, I'm only covering first book, I'm just covering my bases here, it will increasingly lead up to the fact that Percy fights for the gods, not the demigods this time round. This is a bit of a big change, but it is necessary. Let's get into book one and let's see what will actually change. Right off the bat, I want to say the first 3 chapters of this entire book, starting from Percy's opening line of, "Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood," all the way to Percy fighting the Minotaur. All of that is fantastic. I'm going to get to chapter 3 in a wee moment, but let me just go over some subtle small changes from chapters 1 and 2. I want Percy to notice more weird things. The mist doesn't work when Percy wants it to, and it does when he doesn't want it to. So I'm actually going to have the mist actually be favorable to Percy this time round. Now, while you might say, oh, but that's a weird thing to do, uh, sorry about that, a little bit of water, Poseidon style. But yeah, one of the things that I want to do is actively make that the mist doesn't have as much of an effect on Percy. Another one of the things that I'm going to do and slightly hint at is that, one, introducing Selena early. This is a little bit of a change later on, but this is actually to give a grasp of this. Charm Speed doesn't work too well on Percy. It has a little bit of an effect, basically making the suggestion or the like command a little bit easier for him to follow, but he will break out of it. Think of it like Harry Potter versus the Imperius Curse. Percy is resistant to it, like highly resistant. He is also able to see through the mist, but due to this, the mist now works for him in trying to keep him safe. One of the things that I will change here is that Grover is his friend for most of the year before Chiron gets called in. The thing is that Chiron was brought in pretty early enough that he was like going through an entire year with Percy. Meanwhile, Mrs. Dawes comes in halfway through the year, which means that Chiron should have noticed Mrs. Dodds, but to be honest, this old centaur has an ailing mind. Like the dude has a madness greater than Dionysus's. Look, I'm going to be honest here. Most of this is pretty well thought out. The subtle gaslighting is an effectively creepy way to make it so that way Percy is distrustful towards Chiron and Grover, except that it never happens towards Grover, which makes sense, that's his best friend, but it should happen to the fully grown adult. Reminder, Grover is about the equivalent to a sixth grader for most of his life by now. A little bit of a hyperbole, but yeah, whatever. So I wouldn't actually change much in these opening chapters. By making the mist work a little bit funky around Percy, we can have it so that way when he learns about his Greek heritage, the mist just basically stops for him 90% of the time. But he can also break through it if he wills himself to do it. So subconsciously, he still wouldn't be able to see Tyson for most of the year, but he would still be able to like see through it when Annabeth tells him to. This is just to keep the fact that Tyson is a choice rather than an obligation or out of fear of him becoming bad or anything like that. I don't know what the TV show did with that, but who does that not sit right with me? And then we get to the chapter 3. Chapter 3 is My Mom Teaches Me Bullfighting. Again, first two chapters, perfectly great, perfectly well executed. Chapter 3, My Mom Teaches Me Bullfighting. Again, perfect. I absolutely love this chapter. While it's a shorter one, this also means that there's only a little bit at the end to change. Percy doesn't catch any details. This is to set up the mystery of, oh, who says he's the one? He must be. Meanwhile, Percy is too out of it and too disoriented to even notice who actually said it. The reason why I'm saying this is because I'm wanting there to be a little bit less of a pushing Percabeth right from the start. I wasn't around when this book first came out, like 2005. Shit, I wasn't even born then, which is really weird to say because this book series is about as old as I am, which is really concerning, considering the fact that I deem it needing a rewrite. Rewrite, not rewrite. What the hell is my voice? But to change this, instead of saying pretty blonde princess curls or whatever, Percy will just like one of the blobs spoke, not even identifying the voice. Percy is so out of it, he doesn't even recognize if the voice is male or female. Um, there's also no silence Annabeth. It is a silence child. While that seems a little bit harsh, it is also just to keep up the air of mystery, and let's be honest, Chiron get away with calling some of the gods child. So, you know. Here's the weird thing. Chiron has a few conflicting sources. Let me actually go into theoi.com and double check with something. If I go under heroes, definitely not. Like, why would he be under heroes? No, he's under. He's not under Titans. I know that much. Miscellaneous? God, spirits, and monsters, A to Z. That should be it. If I go Chi. Uh. Okay. Centaur Chiron. Wait. Does Chiron not have his own page? Okay. Calliope does. Calypso does. Campe does. Carpe does. Centaurs do. Um. Actually, wait. Yeah. Family of the Centaurs. Ixion and Nephele and Immigranticius. Selenius and Melia as brothers. Yeah. Yeah, Centauri, Infinium Boar. Hold on. Chiron is mentioned 3 times. Who isn't even mentioned who the father is. Killed the. Chiron. Some Greeks say that Chiron, other than. Okay. Yeah, Chiron doesn't actually have a Greek page or anything Greek related. It's weird, but yeah, Chiron doesn't really have a standing in the myths. He taught Hercules for a little bit, but there isn't really a whole lot of myths or even information about him. So, yeah, I'm gonna say it. Chiron might be a bit more of a Romanized character. I'm not going to say that he's a bad character. I'm not going to say that he shouldn't exist. He fundamentally tracks for this sort of story, but let's just be honest. This dude should be dead, like Percy says in the first interaction. Yeah, no, in his first interaction, here it is. But shouldn't you be dead? Um, when Percy says that, it is actually really telling that Percy knows of the 12 Levers of Hercules and who is in the names, because Chiron dies to Hydra venom. Sorry, no, not Hydra venom, Hydra blood. Reminder, a centaur's blood is poison, as is a hydra's. That's the reason why there's Hydra blood tipped arrows, or Hydra tipped blood arrows, or whatever you want to call them. And another thing that I'm wanting to point out is that Riptide and Zoe perfectly fine. We can just add in details, add in new characters and the like if they make sense and don't directly contradict with a lot of the myths. And it doesn't directly, trying not to be too mouthy here, doesn't flip the story in ways that should not be possible. We're not just going to have like 3 sons of Zeus just all stroll into camp like Huey, Dewey, and Louie. We're not going to have that. We're also not going to have Amphitrite suddenly be a second Hera. I've seen that interpretation in a lot of the fandom. Reminder, the only time we get to see her is during the battle that sieged Poseidon's palace, his entire home, all of Atlantis. Of course, she's going to be a little bit cold and distant when Percy is taking up most of Poseidon's attention. But we never get to see her after that. But I'm 90% sure during Percy Jackson of the Greek Gods, the one where Percy explicitly states Amphitrite is not like Hera in the fact that she doesn't care that Poseidon has multiple lovers as long as A, he doesn't try to control her or her kids, and B, he comes back to her. Sally Jackson kind of screws with this a little bit, but I'm going to get into Percy's view of her changing throughout the series later on. Don't get me wrong, she's still a good person, but good people can make stupid decisions at the same time. So, chapter 5, which isn't We Capture a Flag, that's the next chapter. This one I'm pretty sure is. Oh, no, wait. Chapter 4 was We Play Pinochle with a Horse, which, let's be honest, that was a perfectly fine chapter. If anything, I would only change Dionysus to be a little bit more like the movie, a little less like the TV show. The reason for this is because TV show Dionysus seems completely disinterested in everything, and while he does have a little bit of a funny moment, this is not Dionysus. This is your drunk uncle that was, like, banned from getting into the camp storeroom. Like, no, that is literally his whole entire character. He pretends to be people's fathers just to get a swig of alcohol. This is more Gabe than the Gabe in the TV show. I'm sorry, this is not a deconstruction of the TV show. Okay, so we'll make Dionysus a little bit more like the movie, and a little bit more like the original book interpretation. He gets people's names wrong. He's a little bit of a sarcastic, whiny bitch. That is the strongest language I'm going to use for this video, just to make sure it's not marked as for kids. He is also going to be a bit more comedic. He's a bit more lighthearted. Reminder, he's also one of the gods that has Child Protector as one of his more Greekly titles. He's going to take that to heart. It's just the fact that, one, he's been stripped of one of his most prominent and known for domains, which leaves only madness and child protecting, which do not go hand in hand. Reminder, passive or caring drunks are a thing. They're not all lash out rage assholes. Might have lied when I said the B word, was the only word that I was going to say. But this also means I have to be careful in how I portray him. Because, one, being restricted from one of his domains, as well as the ancient rules of not getting too attached to campers or even interacting with kids too often, is definitely going to play into effect here. There isn't an ancient rule of that, that is just one of Zeus's decrees after the 1940s incident. That, yes, that pact still happened, but instead of that being caused by I don't really have any witty things. You know who the hell it is. Instead of that guy being the son of Hades, it is now in fact due to the prophecy coming out as soon as that guy died. There is going to be a prophecy that one mortal shall be like the most evil of all evils. And then this one will come out where one of the half-bloods is said to either destroy or preserve Olympus. Here's where it bites us in the ass. Reminder, even way back in the 1940s, the language then is not the language we have nowadays. So all of that rhyming would seem a little bit better for around that time. Due to this is still the reason why Maria D'Angelo, or Mary the Angel, which we shan't get into the metaphysical, as Chiron said, but it also keeps Nico and Bianca saved in the Lotus Casino, or the Hotel California, which is now a song that was based on the Lotus Casino, which I know that sounds like a bit of a stretch, but it fits weirdly well. I'm just going to say that. The TV show would have done it if they weren't cowards. I mean, hell. The Lotus Casino in the movie was actually pretty alright. The movies are actually pretty alright if you just want something mindless to turn on. They're not like meant to be great works of art. They're also not a quick cash grab either. You've seen how some of these actors did it. They were actually trying for it. While it was a bit more goofy fun, it also allowed for characters to be more human. Heck, that is possibly one of my favorite iterations of the Percy and Poseidon talk. It's actually the one where we get to see Poseidon and Zeus just chatting outside of the throne room at the start. It is a quiet threat to Poseidon rather than a loud one in front of all the other gods. I feel like that is an actually good way to do it. With that being said, when going over the camp thing, I feel like Chiron never actually explaining anything to Percy is also a really great way to show how disconnected Chiron is because he's so used to people just watching the orientation film. So a lot of Percy's questions are just throwing him off for reasons that were entirely Chiron's fault. When Percy asks the logical question of, what do you do when it rains? Because it does rain in camp sometimes. Reminder, grass still grows. I don't know if you know this, but grass needs water to survive. Deserts do not start out as deserts all the time. There's a reason why oases exist. It is just funny how people just take into fact that Chiron just probably was telling him things. Percy knows nothing, and I'm also wanting to amend something. Percy has the Minotaur horn the entire time. I want the Minotaur horn to be a part of Percy's sort of arsenal. Reminder, if the Minotaur horn is enough to a pierce into either a rock or a tree without it breaking off, this thing must be sturdy as hell. And if you want to say, oh, it already had a crack from that ram, and Percy was only able to pull it off due to the water boost, reminder, this is a 12-year-old Percy with a little bit of rage and, well, a lot of rage, and the rain. Well, the rain might have been torrential. That is still an impressive feat due to the fact that Percy ain't exactly a bodybuilder. So, the Minotaur horn, due to the mist working in Percy's favor and due to a little bit of spell work, see, one of the biggest travesties is that all heroes are actually able to learn a bit of magic. I actually deem this because of the fact that the mist has to work for heroes in a sort of nature, is the fact that this basically turns into a ceramic knife. Like a keratin knife. I'm not saying that Percy gets a keratin dagger or anything like that. He ain't emerging on Annabeth's territory. But he does get a shorter sword this time. Reminder, Riptide is a long ass blade, even when Percy is 16 to 17. it isn't just a small sword that you can have and swing around in a small room. Like a javelin was kind of smashing into a cabinet in book two. A sword isn't going to fare much better, but this to illustrate this point, you're going to see on screen here Grandmaster Hanzo Hisashi from Mortal Kombat 11. He has one shorter and also one longer sword. One is better for close combat, the other one is better for even closer combat. While they can be dual wielded, dual wielding swords isn't usually a tactic done by demigods or anyone in Greek mythology that I know of. Reminder, I'm not like all knowing or anything like that. So, up to interpretation. But this does mean that, yes, I am giving Percy a second weapon, and it's the Minotaur horn that can turn into a sword. It is a simple spell, but quite unbreakable. And to keep it a little bit different from the sword, this, because one of the things that we know the most for about the Minotaur is like the nose ring and everything like that. Well, it isn't a nose ring, it is an actual ring in the shape of an omega on it. This is basically just to give Percy another discrete sword that differs him from other characters. Again, simple spell, quite unbreakable. Much like how the return enchantment on it is. I'm actually having this happen during one of the shop classes because Percy is good with the magical side of forging, due to his father being the one of the greatest father of cyclopes known in known in the myths, which, let's be honest, probably one of the few good things about the cyclopes in the myths. Reminder, they're not all polyphemus. I hate it how a lot of the more modern interpretations of Cyclops is that, or Cyclopes, is that they're just man-eating monsters that are like brainless in nature. They're not. They're actually incredibly intelligent. So they work in the forges. Percy gets the magical aspect. Percy can enchant even dust to be able to spray across an entire cabin, painting it like bright pink or the harshest red. Percy learns small enchantments like that where it takes only a little bit of it. Percy doesn't learn anything major until Circe, where he sees a spell book and he takes it. The reason why I'm setting up Percy having a little bit of magic now is because I really want to push the fact that Percy isn't going to be the greatest sword fighter of all time. Sure, he gets a boost, allowing him to use a sword. He definitely beats Luke by a mile, but Luke in that instance only has a sword, no shield. He is actively at a disadvantage, meanwhile Percy is a single sword user who is actually at an advantage. So Percy will win in a disarmament when things are going. And while Luke does push, I'm also wanting Percy to basically be, oh crap, how did I do that? Another thing that I'm wanting to push is that Annabeth isn't like the de facto leader of the Athena cabin. That is actually Malcolm. The reason why I'm going to push this is because despite her being there the longest, she has no idea how to run the cabin. She's the cabin leader. She goes on a lot of the cabin field trips. She basically is the leader and capture the flag, but other than that, Malcolm is the one doing all of the actual jobs. And Chiron knows this, but also deems it okay due to Annabeth's younger age and somebody older than her probably picking up the slack. I'm also wanting to push that Percy and Annabeth are kind of the youngest campers there. Everybody else is around 15 to 19. The reason for this is because Luke is actually still the oldest at 20. He's actually the oldest camper to have not have died, or being brutally hurt enough that even monsters leave them alone. I'm wanting there to be a sort of system of how smells work. To take from the Percy Jackson musical, Grover's like, half-bloods to monsters smell like McGeedees, or however the tune actually goes. Like, dude, listen, please. Half-bloods to monsters smell like McGeedees. That's the one. But due to that, I'm also going to have it that a half-blood that is actively crippled is not going to smell as strong as anybody else. They're going to have a faint scent, like they've come into contact with a half-blood, but they're not going to smell like a half-blood, if you get what I mean. A god will be able to recognize it, your average hellhound won't be able to recognize it. Like, say, an elder cyclops, or cyclopes, or an elder hecatoncheires, however you pronounce it. Hecatoncheires, like Braries, or a titan, or an like a more ancient hellhound, or one of the furies. They will be able to notice it, but nothing really too normal. So those are like extreme circumstances. That's actually how a lot of the more older campers are managing to survive out in the real world, because they're hurt enough that they don't exactly have the best time. One of the things that I will put here is that Annabeth has no idea how to human. I'm wanting to push that some demigods are more godly than they are human in how they react to their godly parent. Annabeth is a mini Athena, but in all the worst ways. Malcolm is a bit like Athena, but in all the best ways. Malcolm gets the kind, caring, compassionate side, the side that cared for Odysseus, the kind that tried to turn a mortal in a box into something. Actually, wait, am I thinking of the right one? I might be thinking of the right one, I might not be. I can't remember which one. If it was Demeter or her. No, Demeter was the one sticking a child into a freaking fireplace. Athena was the one with the box and the snake. Yeah, so she tried to turn a kid into a god because she felt obligated to. Athena is actually a kind of caring person who actually has feelings, seeing as how she even wanted the apple of from what was your name again? Eris, goddess of uh yeah, no, I gotcha. Okay. So Eris, Discord, not the messaging one, the goddess of Discord in the original sense. No, he's actually a pretty good version of that, actually, weirdly enough. Look, Eris is one of the few characters where we actually have no idea what she's like outside of just basically praying. Ah, yes, she is a devout nun to the Greeks, or a devout priestess to the Greeks. No, we don't know what she's like aside from playing pranks and doing things like that. Why are you two here? Anyway, we actually do know that Athena has a sort of childish outlook on a few things. While we could attribute this to a lot of what Annabeth thinks, I also want this to be her more human side, and that's Malcolm. I want Malcolm to be all of the best parts of Athena. That's the reason why he's just certainly content with being the true leader of the cabin. Meanwhile, Annabeth is the loudmouthed one that's like, Athena always has a plan. That's not the cabin motto, Annabeth. Wait, we have an actual motto? Yeah, it's be wise, but also be kind. Oh. Wait, is that where be kind, be please rewind comes from? Yeah, that was actually a child of Athena that did that. Oh, neat. Yeah. I'm also wanting Annabeth to have a more skewed look on everything. She is a. Uh, she loves her mom and believes she's one of her favorite children. That's the reason why she's always trying to get out and prove herself. Oh, I did this like shopping trip. Oh, I did this small little quest to the countryside. Oh, I helped this camper in. thinking it's making her mom proud, and it is. It is, but here's the thing. Unlike Norse mythology, not every Roman god is depicted as being warlike. Athena kind of got that ripped away, and that becomes Minerva. Except I want Minerva to be all of Athena's good side, and that's the side that tends to go to the Greek camp. There are going to be children of Minerva over at Camp Jupiter who are supposed to be the Athena side. The more warlike, I have less emotions and I'm a good soldier kind. Oh, Malcolm is one of the children of Minerva, and that's the reason why he's so much more kind, compassionate, everything Annabeth is not. I'm not saying Annabeth is a robot. She still has emotions. She's not a sociopathic psychopath. No, she is still human. She makes mistakes. But she's too proud to admit them, and she typically acts like how the actual book Annabeth acts. Please remember, Annabeth is a bad character. She could have been good. She could have had an arc where she became a better person due to Percy, or due to Percy's influence. She doesn't change. Annabeth is a stagnant character. I will have her change, but she's not going to have all of the same plot points as before. Now, with that out of the way, let's actually get into Percy's, like, claiming. Or, what the hell is up with Capture the Flag, and why, oh, why do we think we need this? I have actually had a little bit of time to think about this. Capture the Flag feels so weird to me because it is a weird concept. Capture the Flag is, to repeat myself, is weird in the fact that it is a normal thing. Like, camps do capture the flag, and it does make sense that they would do it a little bit more warlike, but I think what really sets it out as being one of the parts that makes the least amount of sense is the fact that there is no rule. There is no rule that anybody that arrived to camp like a day ago cannot participate. We actually get to see this with Nico. This is not a good way to do characters and a sporting event when new campers who might have just learned that, oh yeah, the Greek gods exist and now you have to hold a sword. This is not a good thing. Reminder, we learned the Titan's curse that even if you're there for like a day, you'll be outfitted with a shield and sent into battle. Not exactly the greatest. But let's actually change this. Well, yes, Percy does have a bit of downtime, and that is what My Dinner Goes Up in Smoke is meant to be a chapter about. Yikes. Let's just say that there isn't enough time for this to legitimately make sense. I think changing it so that way a hellhound pounces on Percy during, like, dinner or something like that, where there's, like, a lot less of a chance of him being saved easily. Because if they are to attack him with so many other demigods around, Camp wants him gone because he's a danger to everyone. Camp is a lot less trusting of Percy this time around. In fact, Percy gets the quest the very next day. He's only been in camp for like a week at this point. The reason why I'm wanting to push that the camp just wants him gone is to really push the fact that children of the big three are not accepted. Not like how they were back in the day. First major change. While I've been doing some smaller ones, here is the big one. The Greek gods use their Romanized name except Percy and Dionysus call them by their proper ancient Greek name. This is to put a disconnect between Percy and the other campers due to him following Dionysus's rule. Proper names, nothing Romanized. This also puts Percy at odds with Annabeth because she's like, that's not their name. Second biggest change, the prophecy. Well, prophecies as a whole. This is actually going to be a running rule for the rest of the series because while the first two, actually the first three quests actually make sense by sounding wise, there's no rule that every single quest needs to rhyme. In fact, ironically enough, the one that is criticized for not being a quest, which is Mars's Tasks, is actually the most quest-like out of all of them. Hey, do this. If you fail, then everybody dies. If you succeed, then glory to the Legion. That was more prophecy-like than a lot of prophecies we get. And while yes, a lot of them can be two-faced or can have double meanings, a lot of the ones Percy interacts with are pretty straightforward, or he figures it out pretty quickly. So I'm going to keep most of them the same. The reason why I'm changing it is one, for the major big prophecy, and two, for the Battle of the Labyrinth prophecy. But we're not there yet, so let's actually go over this one. So Percy still defeats Luke in sword fighting due to the boost, but the boost doesn't immediately crash away after Percy disarms Luke. Not the crash, the boost, like the wave crash. It doesn't immediately go away when Luke tries to do it again. He puts up a struggle, but he's unable to do it, meaning, well, yes, that's a bit of beginner's luck. We also get to learn that Percy's just naturally proficient in a single sword fight. But then the Hellhound and Poseidon claims him while also moving water around him to heal him, calling in Percy one of his powers. Well, yes, it is technically good that Percy learned it during Capture the Flag. It also means that Percy isn't actively harmed before going off on this quest, that none of the campers feel remorseful for Percy feeling like an outcast because hey, he was never actually harmed by them. In fact, he seemed to be harming them. So, in their own minds, they're justified. To continue off this, the prophecy remains the same. It is actually really short, sweet, and to the point. One of the things that I will change is instead of Annabeth volunteering, Chiron will say there was only one, there were only two people that volunteered at all for this quest, and one of them is already in the room with us because he didn't know that Annabeth was in the room the entire goddamn time. Grover is the other because Grover decided to stick by Percy no matter what the quest was. Well, yes, this technically does push, like, oh, Grover's a better friend to Percy than he is to Annabeth. It kind of is like that in the main series anyway, so we'll just go with that. Percy gets given the pen right there and then, but Chiron never tells him it's a sword. Percy knows it's a sword, but he doesn't uncap it in front of Annabeth, who would probably info dump on it. And Percy knows this, and he doesn't exactly want to know the history of a sword. He doesn't want to judge it for what it's done or who used to own it. He wants to do something right with it now, and it feels pretty balanced in his hand. So, now they're off on the quest. First things first, while yes, they do still suspect Hades, you get the sense that Percy's like, but this doesn't quite make sense for the Lord of the Dead, who's probably running out of space, to want more of the dead. This also comes with the unfortunate realization that Rick Royden didn't have the Kane Chronicles or Valhalla or Gunnengap or frickin' Vanaheim or whatever the place was called? Uh, Wagon Wheel or whatever? Volkswagen? Volkswagen. Volkswagen. Yeah, he didn't have every other religious or every other mythological and religious afterlife sorted out yet. So, first big change is that the underworld isn't as overcrowded, but it's still pretty overcrowded since Hades, ironically, out of the goodness of his heart, takes on the souls that wouldn't make it elsewhere. Because, hey, he's giving them a fair chance. Well, that adds on the paperwork. Reminder, Hades is one of the kinder and more just gods. There's nothing to hide in death. Another thing that I'm going to push is that while not all of the myths are accurate, a lot of the oldest ones are. The ancient rule of gods not interacting with their parents has now been changed to a newer rule after World War II, because some gods favored some of their kids rather than others, and this created a disconnect, meaning, yeah, both Greeks and Romans were on both sides of the war. Some Egyptians, some Norse, basically everybody was there. The next thing, every mythology exists. This is one of the biggest things that I will be pushing. Every single mythology and religion all coexists. Not all of them are like God, but a lot of them are going to be pretty special and pretty unique in their powers and how they work. Take Izanagi, for example. He is the god of creation, but he stepped down from that title to give it to Amaterasu, goddess of the sun. So he's taken a step back and he's a lot more relaxed now. Meanwhile, Amaterasu is a massive raging lesbian just looking for a wife half the time. Well, that is a bit of a joke, and we wouldn't actually get to see that in the series unless there's a spin off about Japanese gods and everything, and Percy goes over there for some reason. I do find it funny that her one of her few myths where she is directly stated to be interested in somebody is a woman doing a provocative dance. Make of that what you will. So, with that out of the way, we actually have to take into account every mythology coexisting. Except we also don't. To put it more clear cut, instead of everybody just being centered around New York, and everything just moving to New York, ironically enough, while there are factions of different mythologies in the entirety of America, New York and the surrounding area is Greek and Roman. This is to double make sure that everything works like that. Valhalla has entrances all over the bloody place, even entrances into Olympus if need be. It's mainly for gods moving through Valhalla. But it also does give an actual reason as to why Percy could accidentally stumble in or learn about a Norse god at some point. Um, Due to that, Norse gods are actually available all over America. All Greek and Romans stick to the same sort of areas, sometimes moving outside of it. And then you have got to the west. You can't you can't really go much east when you're on Long Island. Yeah, so New York is like the most eastern place that is possible. For all Chiron knew, the god who had turned in the west is possibly like Susanna O or like uh Set already turned like 100 years ago, like Horus. Like everything west is a pretty vague term. And if you go far enough west, you're not even east anymore. Like even if you go like far enough east, you're technically in the west. If you go far enough west, you're technically in the east. Directions are wonky. They are incredibly lucky that Ares decided to fight them in the West. Moving on, their bus exploding still happens, except the Furies say something weirder than where is it? They say, where is the sea spawn? Not where is Percy Jackson, where is the spawn of the sea? This is hinting at that Percy isn't exactly the son of Poseidon, but uh, however you pronounce the original ancient Greek name, as well as Poseidon and Neptune. Sally got all three. Smelly Gabe is still a number of choice words, but Percy isn't actually labeled as a terrorist this time around. I mean, 12-year-old terrorist is just bad on anybody's resume. Never mind the fact he's never been fucking arrested. Instead, Percy is MIA. Percy is just missing alongside his mother. While Gabe tries to blame Percy, this actually looks bad on him now because the miss is being kind to Percy, and because Gabe is trying to blame a 12-year-old for a grown woman's disappearance. To contrast this, I also want to push the fact that Percy is unrecognizable at this point. He's beaten up. He has a scar already from the Minotaur and the crash. Like, Percy looks different. He has a scar on him. In fact, due to the bright, freaking orange shirt that he's wearing, his face isn't able to be seen on anything because it just looks blurry. In fact, most people don't even recognize his face, they only recognize the t-shirts. I think that's what was supposed to happen in the original story, except the mist works just bad around Percy, but this is what's going to happen now. Due to the fact that, as confirmed by the Ship of the Dead, which. Oh, I really hated the speech Percy gave there because. Percy, Betty, you're the one that did all of that. No, like, literally, you're the one that. Nope, nope, this isn't like a breakdown of everything wrong in the series after book 2 of Heroes of Olympus. It's not that. Let's get back to it. Back to the Ship of the Dead proper. Alex, Magnus, and Jack all act weird as hell, so that way they're just able to completely bypass mortals' vision. I do actually really like this idea, but I'm going to have it more subtle for Greek demigods and Roman demigods, that just being their bright, bioluminescent shirts that have weird writing on them that just looks like a pattern. So it's like, oh, it's just a normal summer camp, but don't really think about the kids that are moving around. I think the Medusa part is actually all good. Like, that is an actual pretty well done part of the book. Reminder, I'm not going to have much to say about the first few books. Those are actually pretty well done. I'm not skipping to the parts that I actually want to do because I'm wanting to tell you, oh, no, that part's pretty alright, or little changes here and there, but other than that, it's pretty good. That's the reason why I'm actually going on about book 1 instead of multiple books this time, and with only the changes. The only thing that I'll change is that Percy just legitimately goes, you know your mom gets blamed for cursing her to not be able to take a mortal form anymore, right? What? No, your dad. That was the Roman version of the myths, Annabeth. No, it wasn't. Sorry, let me rephrase that. That is the version of the myths the Romans got because that was so far up Greek history that it is actually closer to being more modern day than certain types of dinosaurs were to each other. How dare you? What, know more myths than you do? It's about my dad. Guys, you're gonna give me a migraine. Satyrs don't get migraines. So, could you please just stop? Percy's actually correct on this one. Pure monster. No smell of mortal on her. Fine. Gerber acting as the voice of reason and actually taking Percy's side is meant to actually clue in the fact that they have a history together. like Annabeth and Grover, because Annabeth seems genuinely disappointed when Grover takes Percy's side. Percy still sends the head up to Olympus, but the message is changed. Heads up, going for your lightning bolt. Don't zap us again, Zap Happy. With love, Percy Jackson. Or something along those lines. Like, Percy is a lot more sassy with this because, hey, he's earned it. And the gods recognize that. Zeus doesn't, but that's because at the end of this book, Percy actually earns the right to sass Zeus back a little bit. So the rest of the gods are actually pretty okay with Percy just existing at this point because, one, this is something that a lot of other heroes would probably have never had the balls to do, but the Greek gods can at least respect his gall for it. In fact, Poseidon almost fell off Olympus laughing. Two, it's technically a sacrifice to the gods, so why would they be pissed off about it? In fact, the only reason why Zeus is pissed off is because of the fact that Percy wrote that note. Remember a while back when I said that I was only using like a few harsh swears? Yeah, me neither. Anyway, moving on. The pink poodle scene is still okay enough, but I do honestly just want to keep that chapter because it actually flows from the talk of the wild. The fact that Percy and Grover both sense something of the wild, meanwhile Annabeth doesn't even stir in her sleep, meaning these two have a connection to something that she doesn't. And then the pink poodle scene. I'm not going to have it be a pink poodle. While it was done for laughs and saying hello to the pink poodle was funny, I do think it just being a normal rich kid's dog and the fact that the kid was attached enough that the parents have to pay out a lot of money for it is really telling of just sort of that. Heck, if you want to introduce it into the Heroes of Olympus stuff, uh, you could just maybe make it Piper's dog. That could work, I guess. Ugh, my throat. I'm not going to sit here and say that you need to connect everything. In fact, having some stories be set on their own also makes sense. But I do honestly appreciate the fact that the Pink Poodle was supposed to break up the like back to back pretty grim and serious sections. Now they're on a train. You don't need a passport to get across different states. You do need one to get across into a different country. So the kids are actually alright as long as they show their tickets. Typically, back in 2005, 2006, you didn't exactly need a face to go with the ticket or proof of purchase to double check that you're the actual person. In fact, you don't even need it that much now, but I know some trains and the like would be like that just to double check that, oh, you didn't just steal somebody else's ticket, or oh, you're all just sharing one ticket, or something like that. I really hate the show for adding Echidna onto the train. Well, yes, it does get them into the St. Louis Arch for more reason than just sightseeing. Again, waiting for the train to start again or for another train to come by. Completely normal. Like 100% normal. Um, Lotus Casino is not in this one. Oh, wait, no, it actually is. Shit. So after not the Manticore, so Knuckles and her puppy, whatever the hell that thing was, Chimera? Yeah, I think it was a Chimera. So basically, Knuckles and Chaos, which the fact that I can even make that joke is really telling, have sent Percy into the water, and now Percy has got the summons from his dad. It isn't just some random sea nymph, it is actually Amphitrite herself because, hey, this is a hero that actually garners her attention because there's not like a gabillion Poseidon kids running around. I know we make that joke, but Poseidon doesn't actually have that many mortal kids. Like, not that many demigods. In fact, Theseus is up for debate if Poseidon is even his dad. He might have just been blessed by Poseidon, which would make a bit more sense in the telling of his end. So Percy gets the uh, summons to go to the beach because of the fact of everything. Annabeth says the line, "There's no such thing as free lunch." And Percy's like, Yes, there is. Well, not, well, schools give you free lunch. Well, technically it's paid for by your tuition. Yeah. No, not every school does that, Annabeth. Some schools have you pay for a free lunch. If you get a free lunch at school, that's a free lunch at school. Or it has to cost somebody something. Yeah, okay, now that makes more sense, but why don't you just say that instead of there's no such thing as a free lunch? Why just leave it at that one sentence? Expand upon it. You can't just have one sentence. I thought you were dyslexic and ADHD. Percy only gets bad grades because the teachers hate him. He actually is pretty good at writing. Oh, of course you take his side again. I'm wanting there to be a bit more animosity between Percy and Annabeth. Percy is actually trying to work with her, meanwhile Annabeth is a bit more not the greatest. So Lowe's Casino, that is wait, no, that's after right. Look, book one happens really fast with a lot of back-to-back things. I feel like a lot of people forget that most of the time was gone because of the time skip that was the Lotus Hotel and Casino. So we've made it onto Ares' quest. Perfect, no notes. I can't actually fault this one. This is actually all good. I can also understand the wildlife thing. Uh, all of this is actually pretty good. Annabeth opens up to Percy, but gets a little bit annoyed when he doesn't open up back, but agrees with her that, yeah, no, that was a pretty bad thing to happen to you. So she's less annoyed, but she's still a little bit irritated that she doesn't know a lot about Percy. And then we get to the Lotus Hotel and Casino after unleashing a zebra on Vegas. Don't know why I was going to go leopard. That is Dionysus' thing. So then they escape, which still has the same time frame and everything. They got to the beach a bit earlier on, I think. Yeah, they got to the beach a bit earlier on. That's when they collected the pearls, and that's when the no such thing as a free lunch section comes in. Okay, I don't have the full timeline in front of me, okay? It is a relatively whoops, that was Lego. It's a relatively short book, but it also is pretty condensed. That's the reason why this is so long. Timeline's a bit jumbled for me, specifically around when the river and the beach talk happen. So then they get to, honestly, they get to LA, and yeah, no, this section is perfectly fine as well. Describing it as Ares. Yeah, big, loud, messy. You could definitely get turned around and messed up if you take the wrong turn. Exactly like Ares with his anger issues of the modern day. Because remember, the Romanized gods are the Romanized gods of today. I also like the section where Percy. This is the first time Percy learns that celestial bronze is not affected by anything mortal. Like, it just goes through one person. And Annabeth's like, you idiot! Meanwhile, Grover just has the sudden realization Percy was straight up ready to kill a kid, like kill a older teenager who was maybe like 19 or 20 years old because of the fact he moved to hurt Grover first. This is where the whole loyalty comes into it. Percy is doing this out of the want to save his mom, to get her back from the dead. He also wants to prove to his father that, hey, I'm not somebody that just wants your love. I also want to earn it. And he's going to have those thoughts, and while Grover correctly guesses them, Percy never admits to it out loud until the last climactic part. The fact that Percy is willing to kill a mortal for trying to hurt Grover with a knife, yeah, that seems pretty in character. So Annabeth has to pull them away into the waterbed shop. Annabeth and Grover are both captured. Annabeth willingly goes onto a waterbed, meanwhile Grover has to be pushed down, and Percy uses the smooth talking that Poseidon can sometimes get. Percy plays to Procrustes or Krusty's strengths, or what his insecurities are. He talks about how great the waterbeds are. He talks about, holy crap, so no wave motion, even for a guy your size? Oh no, not at all. Oh, and trust me, dude, I get the pain of having to try and find the right bed. If I could just change my size of will, it would be perfect. I know, right? Wait, hold on. Let me just show you there was no wave motion on this. Come on, let me show you. So it's a bit more of an upbeat, but still in a creepy way. Percy is constantly trying not to think, this guy's a monster, this guy's a monster, I want to kill him for hurting my friends. This guy's a monster, I'm sorry, Dad. All of this would be broadcasted to Poseidon as well because one, two of his kids are in the same bloody building, and two, Percy's thoughts aren't, oh, um, oh, I don't want to fight anybody. It's, oh, I'm about to kill my brother who my dad probably loves, but I also want to save my friends. I'm sorry, Dad, that I have to do this. And he does do it, and there's no reaction at this point because they immediately descend into Greek hell. It's not Greek super hell, that's the sequel series. I failed to mention this before, but the magical shoes still the same, uh, except this time Percy's blade directly pushes back against a lot more. While it does try to suck them in, Riptide creates a bubble around them out of the waters of the Styx, which they are close to. There's a whole entire thing of oh yeah, the waters from the underworld can drip into Tartarus and everything. I think creating a bubble out of the Styx really pushes the fact that Percy has a connection to the waters of the underworld already, except Annabeth doesn't notice it because she is terrified. Grover senses the fact that the Styx is around them, but doesn't really comment on it because not his place to. The throne room scene plays out pretty much the same, except Hades is like, I shall not kill your mortal form, boy, but I shall keep you trapped down here. For keeping you trapped shall escape my brother's wrath more than just killing you. Which is the lead up to the pearls and leaving Sally behind because she is still in her glass bull cage thing. Percy still makes the promise, they still end up on the beach. Percy, due to the fact that he created the bubble, realizes, oh, I can control water, not just be healed by it. Reminder, while the bathroom scene incident and grabbing Nancy still happens, Percy hasn't really done anything of that sort of water powers in a while. Well, yes, he did bring in the waters from the goddamn ocean to help him in the Waterland Park, This is the first time Percy is actively using it in combat, and he still wins. It goes the exact same way, except Ares doesn't curse Percy this time. The reason why I'm changing this is because this is a dangerous curse to give anybody, let alone being petty against a demigod that won fair and square against you. While war might not be fair, Ares is also the guy that makes sure you like respect your prisoners of war enough. This dude is a massive follower of the Geneva Convention. He would not curse the victor in a battle against him. That is just Ares slander. The fact that I'm actually rooting for Ares for once. Weird. So, they get on a plane. Again, this plays out the same way, except Percy is never labeled as an ex terrorist or anything like that. He's just labeled as a scared kid who wants a plane ticket to go home. Then he pops into a cab and gets to the Empire State Building. Percy notes how there is a weird glow when most people go in, but when he sees a somebody that looks a little bit weird with plants growing around them, maybe one of the dryads that it lives up in Olympus, goes through, it glows a different color. So when he goes through, it actually glows that same color, and the lobby is empty. The reason why I'm doing this is because I feel like if you wanted to make Olympus truly secure, that way no mortal could get in, making it a special entrance where only gods and demigods can go through adds in an extra layer of protection. While, yes, Kronos, being a Titan and all that, would probably be able to just force the doors open, it does add in a little bit of extra protection against a thief of monsters getting through and everything. So Percy goes through, and the doorman just goes, "We've been expecting you, kid. Getting close, aren't you? Here's the card." Uh, thanks? Uh, top floor is Olympus, Olympus. Just press the Greek Omega symbol. If you're wanting to go to one of the other floors on your way down, so that way you actually exit through the mortal exit, then just press any other random number. You sound done with this job. Kid, this is the most boring job anybody could ever have. Do you know who I am? Sure. My name has been lost to time. That's how boring this job is. I'm a receptionist of a god. I don't even have a name. I'm not even mentioned in any myths. And then you could have Percy being like, maybe I could spread your name around. But then the god's just like, eh, I don't even really care at this point, kid. Just go up and try not to anger Zeus again, please. The thunder shakes this entire building, and I'm not sure how strong both versions are to Zeus's lightning. So it's a bit more of a sassy back and forth between the two. Sassy in the receptionist, while Percy's actually respectful to the person that's doing a good job. And the guy respects it, but he's also still a little bit sassy because, hey, why not? So Percy enters, but instead of there only being Zeus and Poseidon, everyone is here. Artemis, Dionysus, Apollo, even Ares is here. Percy, in a 200 IQ move, just immediately goes to his father going, "Hi, Dad." He still bows and everything and takes a knee, but he just says, "Hi, Dad." Not "Hello, Father." He just goes, "Hi, Dad." Just completely casually. This is just to reiterate the fact that Percy's still new to the Greek world. He was never taught etiquette. He doesn't know the correct way to talk to a god, but he also knows that Poseidon cares about him. He cares about all of his kids. And Poseidon just smiles. Percy's smile, Percy notes, the same one he sees in a mirror every time he thinks of something funny, and goes, "Hello, son. Would you mind returning the bolt, please?" And then the conversation plays out pretty much the same way, except Percy doesn't mention thinking it was Kronos. He only mentions it was a sort of force at the end of it, but I'm not really too sure what it could be. Basically, giving Ares an out, as well as basically saying, yeah, there was a weird vibe this entire trip. This also has the added benefit of allowing Poseidon extra time to talk to Percy due to the council allowing it, because, hey, Percy did this big, dangerous quest. It's very apparent he just did it out of the goodness of his heart. Letting him talk to his dad for a bit is like the least they could do. Because remember, retrieving a godly weapon would grant you a bigger boon than what Percy asked for. Heck, doing a smaller quest for the gods nowadays would have demigods asking for a lot more. So, they do get to talk, and Percy's like, yeah, I think it was kind of, my father? Y- yeah, kinda. So then Percy's like, I'm really sorry for killing my half brother. And Poseidon's like, yeah, yeah, to be honest, Percy, not all of my kids are well liked under the sea. There are reasons why some of them don't get as much help as others. I was not mad at Theseus for killing him. I was also, and I will never be angry at you for protecting your friends and for protecting yourself. You were respectful and you felt bad about it. I cannot fault you for that. Or something along those lines. And then we get the major point. The whole I apologize for my misdeeds is said there, but Poseidon goes, I misspoke up there, Percy. My misdeed was making the vow in the first place. That was illogical of me. We could have made a promise. I do uphold my most of my promises. There is a reason why Styx has never cursed me. But please, do not mistake my misspoken words for my lack of love for you. You are my child. You are the true child of mine, of the sea. You are someone that I care deeply enough about that I would break all of the ancient rules, of all of the promises I have ever made, to bring you joy, to bring you hope, to bring you love. But alas, I cannot, for the gods that favor their children too much experience the harshest of heartbreak. There are times where we are not mortal enough, and times we are too mortal to function. Please know, Perseus, I love you. So that is basically the speech that Poseidon gives at the end, and Percy's like, oh, so that's where I get my foot and mouth disease from. And Poseidon will just laugh it off. You certainly have my way with words. Because, yeah, Percy does. He responds in kind, saying, I hated you when I was, like, before learning about all of this. Heck, I still hated you during the quest, but as I went through, I realized, hey, you probably hated this as much as I did. You hate seeing your kids in danger. I remember the Polyphemus myth. Thank you for telling me this. Love you too, Dad. Like, that whole entire section is meant to prove the fact that Poseidon and Percy just wanted a chance to talk things out, and yeah, that is what they got. Uh, Poseidon mentions that Sally is back at home, but that he already sent the package ahead of Percy, and it had already been opened and used. The fact that it had been sent right back to him is proof of that. Percy's like, oh, okay. Did she just immediately get rid of him for little to no reason? Or. And Poseidon goes, she had not told me what he had done. I do not wish to know what he had done, for I would request personal request to Hades to punish him myself, but he is gone now, and the equipment also is. Percy, I would advise you just iris message her, for going into that apartment would possibly be not the best idea. Sally would say that you are with family at the moment, and while that is true, we do not want you hanging around the cops while a missing persons investigation against somebody that was slandering you is about. So essentially, Percy is forced back to camp. I actually want to change the ending here. While Percy and Poseidon have a little bit of mistrust towards Sally because, holy crap, she murdered a guy pretty damn quickly. While yes, he was bad, that was still way too quick for either of their liking. And Poseidon even notes, I have killed many a mortal for less than that, but for less than what he has done, but she is mortal. She has morals. She is not a god. She has empathy. I dread to know what had happened. Or something along those lines. Essentially, it's just meant to create a bit of unease of, yeah, it's a good thing she did it, but it was done a bit too quick. So Percy's on his way back to camp, and then we get to camp itself. Annabeth finishes telling the story of how she was fighting Ares. This is because Annabeth is trying to take credit for the quest. Percy just strolls in and goes, oh, so me drawing first blood ain't exactly a thing right now, is it? And the Ares cabin is like, oh, thank God you are, thank the gods you are here. She has been lying non-stop. And Grover's like, yeah, I couldn't exactly correct her. I think she just steamrolled past me. And then Percy is gifted a tape recorder by one of the Ares cabin members. Look, we might not like you, punk, for your disrespect towards Ares as a whole, but anyone that can hold against our father, even to first blood, deserves our respect, if not our likability. And they give him a tape recorder, and Percy's like, huh, maybe I could do something with this. And then we learn this has all been his audio tape. This has been his audio tape converted into a book form by himself. He's like, I talked all of this out to myself beforehand. I wrote this book to explain to new demigods what my first quest was, to explain to the older demigods my hardships, to explain that my father loves me. I am the true child of Poseidon. Ending with a, I didn't want to be a half-blood, but I am more proud to be my father's son. Or more than proud to be my father's son. Percy does go home because, again, still needing Tyson and still needing the get to know Sally a bit better, but there's definitely a sense of the rest of the book plays out pretty much the same. Let me just state that there. But I'm wanting to push the fact that Percy has a little bit of magic. It's nothing too big. Like, he can enchant items, but he's still crap at the forge. Like, he tries to make a spearhead, it immediately shatters, and the shaft of the spear gets plunged into the archery range in a bullseye which is on the other side of camp through 3 buildings. Percy doesn't even know how it happened. It just did. Percy is basically respected at camp, but he's not well liked because, again, he is favored by his father. The gods don't mind a little bit of disrespect from him, but they all know that if they tried to do anything, they would most likely be struck down by lightning. I'm wanting to push the fact that Percy is special, not in the fact that he's just Poseidon's son. While that is a part of it, it's also because of the fact that he's just fundamentally a hero. Like, one of the most prestige heroes, even by, like, ancient Greek standards. That is basically all my thoughts on changing the first book. While not all of the facts are really divvied out, this has just been my thought process, and heck, I don't even have any visuals to show you or any like rewritten sections because I'm just slapping a single image into this thing and posting it because this has been going on for long enough. I think this might actually be my longest video ever. Wow, and the fact that I'm actually releasing it. With all that being said, um, I do like the original story, but while this could just be taken as a fanfic, I do honestly want to push the fact that Percy's not just the guy with the sword. He's smart, he's got heart, he's able to talk people out of things, he's able to remember things, he is able to do things with water, he's able to do things with magic. He's got a dad that directly loves him, and he loves his dad back. I want to push this because there are going to be shorter stories. That's right. I'm not just rewriting the books, I'm rewriting the short stories and adding more. There's nothing at the end of The Lightning Thief or Percy's School Days with Tyson because I feel like the ending of The Lightning Thief and then the start of The Sea of Monsters is actually pretty strong as it is, so I keep dropping Lego. What is with me? It's just a brick separator, but I just keep on dropping it. What the heck is wrong with me? Anyway, uh, this has been. You're never gonna learn my name. Child of. Who really cares? See ya later.